It's Friday, June 5th, 2026.
Yep.
And we are just days away from the biggest World Cup in history, spread all across North America.
It is massive. Truly massive.
It really is. But I mean, heading into a tournament this size, the most successful nation in the history of the sport is currently in a state of, well, absolute undeniable panic.
A complete panic. Yeah.
Welcome to the deep dive.
Thanks for having me. It's a remarkable situation we're looking at right now.
It really is.
We are essentially watching a footballing empire experience a real-time identity crisis right before the biggest event on the planet.
Yeah, and that's why, for our listener joining us today, our mission is to cut through all that noise, the panic, the endless headlines. We want to give you the ultimate definitive guide to the 2026 Brazilian national team.
Because there's a lot to cover.
Oh, a massive stack of sources. We've pulled together everything. We're talking sports analytics networks, betting odds, historical encyclopedias, injury reports. We're using all of this source material to figure out exactly who this selection really is right now.
Right, because they are an enigma.
Completely. We're going to uncover their hidden tactical strengths, their glaring structural weaknesses, all the crazy drama surrounding their roster, and their specific path through Group C.
And, to really set the stage for all of that, we have to acknowledge a massive paradox.
Right.
Brazil is the only team on Earth, literally the only one, to have played in every single World Cup since the tournament started in 1930.
Never missed a single one.
Never. They've been the absolute gold standard for nearly a century.
Okay, let's unpack this, because despite that glittering century of dominance, they are arriving in North America on the back of their worst qualifying campaign in the history of the Federation.
It was incredibly ugly to watch.
It was bonkers. They are currently sitting at 6th in the FIFA rankings, which, if you look at the historical data, that's their lowest pre-World Cup ranking since FIFA started compiling the list back in 1992. Yet, if you talk to analysts, or if you look at the betting markets we pulled, they are still widely considered this terrifying top-tier threat to win the whole thing.
Right.
So how does a team experience a total systemic collapse in qualifying, but still terrify everyone else in the tournament?
Well, because when you play against Brazil, you aren't just playing the 11 men who happen to be on the pitch that day.
Right.
You were playing against the sheer weight of their history. This is a nation with 5 World Cup titles.
1958, 1962, 1970, 1994, and 2002.
Exactly. And that legacy acts as this incredible psychological weapon against their opponents. Teams step onto the grass against Brazil, and often they already feel inferior.
Yeah, they're beaten in the tunnel.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But, and this is crucial, that same history is an immense, almost suffocating burden for the Brazilian players themselves.
Because the expectations are just astronomical.
Right. They aren't just expected to win. They are expected to win with style.
And you feel that burden in everything. Right down to the fabric of their iconic shirts. You hear the nicknames all the time. A seleção, which means the selection. Verde amarela for green and yellow. And the most famous one, Canarinho, the little canary.
A little canary, yeah.
But based on the historical encyclopedias we read, they actually had to go through a profound national trauma to even get that yellow shirt, didn't they?
Oh, absolutely.
Huh.
A trauma that honestly still defines their entire footballing psychology today. Because, prior to 1950, Brazil actually wore white.
Which is so weird to picture now.
I know, right? Just plain white kits. But in 1950, they hosted the World Cup, and they built the Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro for it.
Which was just an absolute colossus.
Massive. It was designed to hold nearly 200,000 people, and they built it explicitly for the purpose of watching Brazil lift their first trophy.
No pressure.
Right. So they reached the final match against Uruguay. And because of the weird tournament format at the time, Brazil literally only needed a draw to become world champions. Just a draw. The morning newspapers had already printed headlines declaring them the victors. The mayor of Rio delivered a pre-match speech proclaiming them champions of the world.
Oh, man, you just know what's coming.
Yeah. Then the unthinkable happened. Uruguay scored late in the second half to win 2-1.
Wow.
In Brazil, it's known as the Maracanazo, the Maracanã blow. The historical accounts from that day describe 200,000 people standing in the stadium in absolute eerie silence.
That gives me chills.
It wasn't just treated as a lost sporting event. It was viewed as a total catastrophe for the national psyche.
And the psychological fallout from that was so intense, the Federation actually concluded that the white uniforms were unpatriotic. and curse.
Yeah, they literally blamed the shirts.
Which led to what has to be the most famous design competition in sports history. A national newspaper, the Correo de Manahan, basically asked the public to design a new kit.
Right, with one specific rule.
Yeah, the only stipulation was that the new design had to utilize all 4 colors of the Brazilian flag. So green, yellow, blue, and white.
And the winning design came from a 19-year-old illustrator, a kid named Alder Garcia Schlee.
Amazing.
He created the iconic canary yellow shirt with the green trim and paired it with blue shorts and white socks. And that visually striking combination became the Canarinho.
The famous yellow kit.
Right. And it was basically a desperate attempt to purge the demons of 1950, which, ironically, succeeded. That kit outfitted the golden eras of Pelé, Garrincha, and later Ronaldo.
But that memory of the Maracanazo, it never really left the culture, did it?
Never. It established this baseline of totally unforgiving pressure. Like when you put on that yellow shirt today, you are defending the pride of over 200 million people against historic ghosts.
Yeah.
And you see that pressure magnified tenfold in their regional rivalries. I mean, the Superclásico against Argentina, that isn't just about regional dominance. It is a bitter fight for the soul of South American football.
Right.
The lingering resentment toward Uruguay, the historical clashes with Italy, none of these are just games to them.
So I'm trying to visualize what that actually feels like for, a modern 22-year-old player stepping onto the pitch today is putting on that famous Nike 10 yellow jersey, essentially like putting on a superhero cape that is actually made of lead.
That's a great way to put it.
Like, you look magnificent. The entire world expects you to take flight and do the impossible, but the sheer crushing weight of it is quietly dragging you down into the earth.
Yes. That is a very accurate way to frame the paralysis we've witnessed recently. The expectation is flight, but the reality is gravity.
Yeah.
And right now, the gravity is overwhelming because the trophy cabinet has been locked for a very long time. If we connect this to the bigger picture, the mathematics of their current situation are actually incredibly eerie.
Eerie how?
Well, Brazil is currently in a 24-year title drought. Their last World Cup victory was in 2002 when it was in South Korea and Japan.
Right, that was the era of the 3 Rs, Ronaldo, Rivaldo, and Ronaldinho.
Exactly. Now, before that 2002 victory, their previous World Cup drought also lasted exactly 24 years.
Wait.
Yeah. It stretched from the legendary 1970 squad led by Pelé all the way to 1994.
Oh, wow. And that 1994 drought ended right here in the United States at the Rose Bowl in Pasadena with Romario and Bebeto.
Which brings us directly to the inescapable narrative hovering over this 2026 squad. Another 24-year drought. Another tournament returning to North American soil.
Oh, the Brazilian media must be eating that up.
They are completely obsessed with the historical symmetry. But, as your analogy points out, constantly wondering if history will miraculously repeat itself might just be adding more lead to that cape.
And that excess weight finally caused the cape to tear during the qualifiers. I mean, let's break down the sheer ugliness of this CONMEBOL qualifying campaign.
It was rough.
For our listener, this is just the regional round-robin tournament they have to play to earn a spot in the World Cup. Brazil finished 5th out of 10 teams.
Yeah, 5th.
Now, because the World Cup expanded for 2026, 6 South American teams get automatic entries, so they did survive. But finishing 5th is unprecedented. They suffered a mind-boggling 6 defeats.
And to contextualize just how catastrophic that is, Brazil had only lost a total of 5 qualifying matches in the previous 2 decades combined.
That is an insane stat.
Right. From 2002 to 2022, they were virtually untouchable in qualifying. So to suddenly lose 6 times in a single cycle, it represents a total structural collapse.
And they weren't just dropping points at high altitudes in Bolivia, which happens to everyone. They lost to Uruguay. They lost to Colombia. They lost to Paraguay. And the deepest cut of all, they lost to Argentina at home.
At the Maracana?
Yeah. Prior to that night, Brazil had never in their entire history lost a home World Cup qualifier.
And that specific match against Argentina really laid bare all the dysfunction. I mean, it was chaotic before the whistle even blew.
Yeah, the crowd trouble.
Massive crowd violence in the stands actually delayed the kickoff.
Yeah.
And then when the game finally started, Brazil looked entirely devoid of ideas.
It just looked lost.
Completely disjointed. They were relying entirely on individual players trying to dribble past 3 defenders at a time. Meanwhile, Argentina just stayed incredibly compact, waited for their moment, and punished them on a set piece.
But it really felt like the on-pitch chaos was just a symptom of the off-pitch rot, you know?
Hmm.
The Brazilian Football Confederation, the CBF, was in the middle of this massive political crisis at the same time.
It was a mess.
We had presidents being removed by courts, interim presidents stepping in, these crazy legal battles over who actually controlled the federation. As a neutral observer, we're not taking sides on the politics of it, but just reporting the facts. The federation was in shambles.
And when the executive level is in that much turmoil, it trickles down. There was zero long-term planning. They were cycling through managers desperately.
First, they had Fernando Diniz.
Right, on an interim basis.
Yeah.
And he was trying to implement this wildly complex, fluid style of play, but with barely any practice time with the squad.
Which didn't work.
It failed spectacularly. So then they pivoted to Dorival Jr., hoping a more pragmatic domestic manager could just stabilize the ship.
And then he was fired in March 2025.
Exactly. The toxic environment just made it impossible to build any sort of cohesion.
Which pushed the CBF to make a decision that essentially broke the internet. They went outside their borders. They hired Carlo Ancelotti.
Which is a profound paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Historically, Brazil relies on Brazilian managers. They believe deeply in their own footballing intellect.
Sure.
But the crisis was so deep, they felt compelled to bring in one of the most decorated managers in the history of the European game. I mean, Ancelotti is the only manager to have won league titles in all of Europe's top 5 leagues.
England, Spain, Italy, Germany, and France.
Yes. And he holds the record for the most UEFA Champions League titles, with 5. He manages massive egos better than anyone on the planet.
But this is his first time ever managing a national team. And his contract runs through 2030, so they are really strapping themselves to this experiment long term. But conceptually, putting an Italian tactical mastermind in charge of Brazil, it feels like trying to mix oil and water, doesn't it?
Oh, a huge culture clash.
Because the traditional Brazilian philosophy is Jogo Bonito, the beautiful game. It's about expression and spontaneity and fluid attacking geometry. It relies on the raw talent of the players improvising on the fly.
Right.
And Ancelotti, while he's adaptable, he fundamentally represents European structure and pragmatism.
And Ancelotti actually tackled that cultural friction head-on during his introductory press conferences. He didn't shy away from it.
What did he say?
He bluntly stated that the perfect team doesn't exist. And he said that trying to build a team purely on aesthetics won't win a modern World Cup.
Wow.
Instead, his stated goal is to make Brazil the most resilient team in the world. He wants to prioritize defensive solidity, tactical discipline, and the ability to suffer under pressure without breaking.
Okay, I have to ask, though. By explicitly abandoning the pursuit of perfection and importing a European tactician to teach them resilience, is Brazil essentially throwing in the towel on their own identity?
That's the big question.
Like, are they looking at the last 20 years where Italy, Spain, Germany, and France have just dominated the World Cup and concluding that the pure, uninhibited Brazilian way of playing soccer is officially obsolete?
That is the existential crisis defining this entire tournament for them. They've watched European nations basically industrialize talent. Countries like France and Germany have heavily engineered tactical systems that neutralize pure individual flair.
Right, they just choke it out.
And Brazil has repeatedly run into these highly structured European teams in the knockout stages, and they've crumbled every time.
Yeah.
So hiring Ancelotti is a tacit admission that raw talent is no longer enough. They feel they need European tactical pragmatism grafted onto their South American flair. It's an attempt at evolution, but it comes with a heavy, heavy cultural cost.
And we are really seeing the growing pains of that evolution. I mean, what does his record look like so far?
What's fascinating here is how remarkably average the results have been during this transition phase. In Ancelotti's first 10 games in charge, his win rate is exactly 50%.
Just 50%.
5 wins, 2 draws, and 3 losses. And for a nation that literally views a draw as a failure, that is a highly turbulent start.
Oh, yeah. The fans must be furious.
It just proves that you cannot simply install a rigid European framework onto a squad that is culturally hardwired for improvisation overnight. It takes time. The players are caught between their instincts and their instructions right now.
And you can see that tension between the past and the future clearly reflected in the roster Ancelotti ultimately selected.
The roster reveal was crazy.
The squad announcement was an event in itself. May 18th, 2026. They staged it at the Museum of Tomorrow in Rio de Janeiro, which is this stunning, futuristic architectural marvel right on the water.
Which is a very deliberate, symbolic choice of venue for a team trying to modernize.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But outside the museum, you had massive crowds of fans chanting, waving banners, and almost all of that energy was directed at one single question. What is happening with Neymar Jr.?
Because Neymar is the defining figure of this generation of Brazilian football, and arguably its most polarizing.
Totally.
He is an icon, a lightning rod, and a tactical enigma, all wrapped into one player.
The fans outside were literally holding signs demanding his inclusion. One sign read, "Neymar with one leg and one eye is better than all of the players on the Seleção."
That's passion for you.
And Ancelotti clearly felt the gravity of that public sentiment because Neymar is on the final 26-man roster heading to North America. But objectively, his inclusion makes almost zero sense.
From a purely medical and sporting perspective, yeah.
He is 34 years old. He has barely played international football since 2023. He's been battling these horrific compounding injuries, a devastating torn ACL, calf problems, knee issues.
He was completely left off the squad during the March call-ups just a few months ago.
Exactly. So why on earth do you bring a severely compromised 34-year-old to a physically demanding World Cup tournament?
Because of the political and cultural reality of managing Brazil.
Okay, explain that.
Well, Ancelotti justified the decision to the press by stating his staff spent the entire year monitoring Neymar, claiming he had finally achieved physical continuity at his club, Santos, back in Brazil.
Which, okay, sure.
But the underlying truth is about legacy. Neymar is Brazil's all-time leading goal scorer. He has 79 international goals. He surpassed Pelé himself.
Which is an incredible achievement.
It is. And when a player reaches that mythical status, leaving him at home requires a level of political capital that a new foreign manager simply might not have.
Ah, I see.
The fan base views Neymar as a talisman. If Ancelotti left him out and then Brazil failed at the tournament, the manager would be absolutely crucified for ignoring their greatest weapon.
But keeping the talisman meant cutting into the future. Because the roster limit is strict, 26 players, and Ancelotti made some truly shocking snubs to fit Neymar in.
It's a very big name stayed home.
He completely bypassed two of Chelsea's brightest young stars, 24-year-old forward João Pedro and 22-year-old midfielder André Santos.
The omission of João Pedro is particularly striking to me. He is a dynamic, highly physical forward who perfectly fits the profile of a modern pressing attacker.
So why leave him out?
The justification floating around the sources is that Chelsea had a disastrous domestic campaign, finishing 10th in the Premier League. And that supposedly hurt the player's stock in Ancelotti's eyes.
But wait, a 10th place finish in the Premier League is arguably a much higher level of daily competition than Neymar faces in the Brazilian domestic league right now.
That's the argument exactly. It feels like a massive, unnecessary gamble.
He also excluded Bento, the 26-year-old goalkeeper playing for Al Nassr. And perhaps the most symbolic cut of all, Thiago Silva.
Yeah, Thiago Silva. I mean, he is 41 years old, but his exclusion is a definitive statement by Ancelotti.
He's been there forever.
He has been the bedrock of the Brazilian defense for over a decade. He played in the 2010, 2014, 2018, and 2022 World Cups. By leaving him out, Ancelotti is completely severing ties with the defensive old guard. He's choosing to fully entrust the backline to the next generation, but that just makes the decision to keep Neymar, the face of the attacking old guard, stand out even more.
It really does, and you see how deeply the shadow of that attacking old guard still covers the current players when you look at the shirt numbers. The culture of respect and hierarchy in the squad is just fascinating.
The shirt numbers mean everything.
They really do. Like, when Neymar tore his ACL in late 2023, the iconic No 10 shirt, the shirt worn by Pelé, Zico, Rivaldo, Kaká, it was temporarily vacant.
Right.
During the March international break, Vinicius Jr., who is widely considered one of the top 3 players on the entire planet right now, he wore the No 10. But the second Neymar's name appeared on Ancelotti's final 26-man roster, an immediate game of musical chairs began.
Because the No 10 in Brazil isn't just a tactical designation. It is an institution. It represents the creative soul of the nation.
And Vinicius Jr. didn't even wait to be asked. He immediately handed the number back. He stated publicly, the number 10 belongs to Neymar. That's obvious.
Just massive respect.
Yeah, and this triggered a chain reaction. So Vinicius Jr. went back to claim his preferred number 7 shirt. But the number 7 was currently occupied by Matheus Cunha, the forward from Manchester United.
Right, so what does Cunha do?
Cunha graciously surrenders the 7 to Vini and moves over to take the number 9. Everyone simply stepped aside to ensure Neymar could have his crown back.
It is a remarkable display of deference from the young guys. I mean, Vinicius Jr. is coming off monumental Champions League winning seasons at Real Madrid. He is in his absolute prime.
He's a global superstar.
Yet within the enclosed ecosystem of the national team dressing room, Neymar still commands ultimate, unquestioned reverence. And if Neymar plays, he will become the first Brazilian in history to wear the number 10 shirt in 4 different World Cups.
Well, here's where it gets really interesting, because Ancelotti is publicly stating that this reverence stops at his tactical whiteboard. The manager has insisted that Neymar is not simply going to be handed the keys to the offense just because he has the number 10 on his back. Ancelotti made it very clear that Neymar has to actively compete for a starting spot against Vinicius Jr. and Rafinha. He is not a guaranteed starter.
Which completely upends the dynamic of the past decade. Since 2014, if Neymar was physically capable of walking, he was in the starting 11, and the entire tactical system was built to serve him.
Yeah.
Ancelotti is attempting to break that dependency. He's declaring that merit, defensive work rate, and tactical fit will dictate the lineup, regardless of historical status.
But let's speculate on the pressure cooker this creates for a minute. Let's say Ancelotti follows through and actually benches Neymar for the opening match. If the offense looks even slightly stagnant, the Brazilian media will detonate.
Oh, the fans will turn on Ancelotti instantly.
Conversely, what if Neymar starts and immediately breaks down physically? Like we said, fans were already furious that the healthy 24-year-old João Pedro was left at home. If Neymar gets injured in the group stage, leaving Brazil shorthanded in the attack, the backlash against Ancelotti's roster management will be nuclear.
The margin for error is essentially zero, especially considering the injury crisis they are already navigating across the rest of the squad.
Right, the injuries are piling up.
They are arriving in North America without several foundational pieces. Eder Militão, the world-class center back from Real Madrid, is out. Forward Rodrigo is out.
2 massive losses.
And tragically, the rising teenage star Estevão, who many viewed as the next generational talent, he suffered an injury and was ruled out too.
Heartbreaking for the kid.
So the depth chart is alarmingly fragile in specific areas. If the Neymar gamble fails, the domino effect could collapse their entire tournament.
Okay, so we have a roster with fragile depth, heavily reliant on a few peak superstars, carrying a hobbled legend, all being marshaled by a European tactician.
Sounds like a recipe for drama.
How does this actually look on the grass? Let's dive into the tactics. Based on the analysis, what is Ancelotti actually building?
He is building a system based on tactical fluidity rather than rigid dogma. He tends to adapt his shape to the specific personnel available.
Okay.
Since taking over, he has predominantly utilized a traditional 4-3-3 or a double pivot 4-2-3-1. However, the most compelling wrinkle is how they operate when they actually have the ball. In possession, Ancelotti pushes his team into a highly aggressive 4-2-4 shape.
Okay, let's explain how that 4-2-4 actually functions mechanically, because how do you push 4 players into the attack without leaving your defense completely exposed to a counter?
It's all about the movement. Picture the field. You have your standard front three plus an attacking midfielder. When Brazil gets the ball, the 2 wingers do not stay wide hugging the touchline.
Like they traditionally would.
Exactly. Instead, they pinch inward, moving closer to the center forward. This creates a dense, terrifying cluster of attackers right in the middle of the opponent's defense.
Which sounds like a nightmare for the center back.
It is. This inside movement forces the opposing fullbacks to abandon the flanks and come inside to help out.
Which suddenly leaves massive empty corridors of grass on the left and right wing.
Precisely. And that space is immediately exploited by the Brazilian fullbacks, who bomb forward to provide width.
Ah, I see.
Meanwhile, the remaining 2 central midfielders sit deep, acting as a screen. They form a structural block with the 2 center backs to prevent counterattacks. It is basically designed to overwhelm the opponent's defensive line with sheer numbers and movement.
And the raw athletic profile of the players executing this is just terrifying. I mean, their speed in transition is lethal. If an opponent turns the ball over in the middle of the pitch, the time it takes for Brazil to go from defense to a shot on goal is a matter of seconds.
They are so fast.
And surprisingly, considering the stereotype that Brazil only cares about attacking flair, the analytics actually suggest their defensive spine might be the strongest part of the team right now.
Oh, it is an elite defensive foundation. Without a doubt.
Right.
You start with arguably the best goalkeeper rotation in the world. Alisson from Liverpool and Ederson from Fenerbahce.
You can't go wrong with either of them.
Right. And in front of them, you have the center-back pairing of Marquinhos, the vastly experienced PSG captain, and Gabriel Magalhães from Arsenal. Gabriel has evolved into one of the most physically dominant, combative defenders in all of Europe.
And the numbers validate that defensive strength, too. I saw that in Ancelotti's first 8 games, Brazil only allowed a total of 5 goals.
Yep.
That is a drastic stabilizing improvement compared to the absolute porousness of the qualifying campaign. But, every system has vulnerabilities. What are the glaring weaknesses here?
The first is a severe lack of depth in central midfield. If Casemiro or Bruno Guimaraes sustain an injury or pick up a red card, the drop-off in quality behind them is extremely steep.
Which is a problem for a long tournament.
Exactly. The entire 4-2-4 system relies on those two midfielders anchoring the team. Without them, the structure just falls apart. Second, they have shown a distinct susceptibility to coordinated European counterpressing.
Let's define counterpressing for a second, just for our listener. It's not just running after the ball, right?
No, not at all. Counterpressing is a highly specific tactical philosophy.
Yeah.
The objective is to win the ball back within the first 5 seconds after you lose it, usually high up the pitch near the opponent's goal.
Okay.
Instead of retreating into a defensive shape when they lose possession, a counterpressing team immediately swarms the player who just won the ball, cutting off all passing lanes.
We're suffocating them.
Exactly. And when teams execute this perfectly against Brazil, the Brazilian defenders and midfielders struggle to play out from the back. They get flustered, they turn the ball over in dangerous areas, and they get punished.
Which bleeds directly into the third, and frankly most concerning, weakness. Profound mental fragility in high-stakes knockout situations. We discussed the ghosts of the 1950 Maracanazo earlier, but the modern trauma is the 2014 World Cup.
The 7-1 defeat to Germany in the semifinals in Belo Horizonte.
Oof.
It is a generational scar. That game completely shattered their aura of invincibility.
And you saw the exact same psychological fragility rear its head in the 2022 quarterfinal against Croatia in Qatar.
Oh, that was painful to watch.
Let's walk through that sequence because it illustrates the problem perfectly. Brazil is locked in a tense 0-0 draw. The game goes to extra time. In the 105th minute, Neymar scores a magnificent goal.
A brilliant individual effort.
They are up 1-0 with only minutes left to play. All they have to do is sit back, defend, and kill the game.
But they couldn't do it. Their natural instinct to attack completely overrode their tactical discipline.
Yeah.
Instead of securing the midfield, they committed players forward looking for a second goal. Croatia won the ball, launched a simple counterattack into the empty space Brazil vacated, and scored the equalizer in the 117th minute.
And the psychological shock of throwing that lead away completely broke Brazil. By the time the penalty shootout started, you could see the defeat in their eyes before they even kicked the ball.
The kick completely collapsed.
When the pressure peaks, this national team has a deeply ingrained tendency to fracture.
This raises an important question regarding Ancelotti's entire strategic approach.
Yeah.
We noted earlier that he wants them to be the most resilient team capable of suffering.
Right.
But can a squad whose entire cultural identity is built around dominating possession, dictating the tempo, and playing beautiful football actually adapt mentally to sitting back, absorbing pressure for long stretches, and relying on counterattacks?
It sounds like he is trying to build a high-tension spring. You take all of that natural, exuberant Brazilian attacking energy, and instead of letting it flow freely, you compress it into a tight, disciplined, defensive coil.
I like that analogy.
You absorb the opponent's pressure, let them push forward, and then snap, you release all that energy in a violent, high-speed counterattack. The problem is, if the mental discipline isn't there, the spring doesn't compress. It just shatters under the weight.
That is an excellent way to conceptualize the tactical experiment of this World Cup. To prevent that spring from shattering, Ancelotti is relying on a few very specific, highly disciplined individuals to execute these transitions flawlessly.
So let's spotlight those individuals. Who are the players tasked with making this hybrid system function? We have to start with the undisputed face of the squad, Vinicius Jr.
Vini Jr., absolutely.
He is 25 years old, arriving off the back of yet another monstrous season at Real Madrid. The creative burden for the entire nation rests squarely on his shoulders.
And how Ancelotti utilizes Vinicius Jr. is really the linchpin of the offense. At Real Madrid, Vini operates strictly as a left winger, hugging the touchline and isolating defenders one-on-one.
Right.
But for Brazil, within that 4-2-4 attacking shape we discussed, Ancelotti frequently shifts him into a central, inside-forward role. By moving him closer to the penalty spot, he forces opposing center backs to step out of position to deal with his blistering dribbling pace.
And when multiple defenders collapse inward to double-team Vinny Jr. in the center, who benefits on the outside? Rafinha.
Exactly.
The winger is coming off a sensational season at Barcelona, where he racked up 61 goal contributions across all competitions. He is Brazil's primary playmaker from the right flank. He takes the crucial free kicks, and Ancelotti actually went out of his way in a press conference to explicitly label Rafinha as the best player in the world at attacking deep space.
Which creates a lethal synergy. Vinicius Jr. disrupts the defensive line by magnetically drawing defenders toward him, and Rafinha expertly times his runs to exploit the resulting empty gaps.
But those two can only thrive if someone behind them is doing the dirty work. And surprisingly, the key to the midfield engine is Lucas Paqueta.
Paqueta has been a revelation.
Yeah. Traditionally, he operates in the number 10 role, which is a position historically reserved for pure, lightweight attacking flair. But during the brutal qualifying campaign, Paqueta fundamentally transformed his game.
He had to.
He was actually the team's top tackler. He registered 15 successful tackles out of 18 attempts in qualifying. He is providing the necessary grit, initiating the press high up the pitch, and winning the ball back to feed the wingers.
And Paqueta's incredible work rate is what allows the defensive midfield anchors Casemiro and Bruno Guimarães to survive. Well, Casemiro is the seasoned veteran orchestrating from deep, while Guimarães is the dynamic engine, who also happens to be their primary corner kick taker, by the way. Together, they form the stable platform that grants Vinicius Jr. and Rafinha the absolute freedom to attack without constantly worrying about tracking back to defend.
And then, waiting in the wings is the ultimate wild card. 19-year-old phenom Endrick.
Oh, Endrick, yes.
He had a rocky start adapting to life at Real Madrid, struggling for minutes early on. But he completely revitalized his trajectory with a highly productive loan spell at Lyon in the French league, logging 12 goal contributions in 17 games. He found his rhythm just in time for the tournament.
Endrick is the terrifying X factor Ancelotti holds in reserve. He possesses this unique physical profile, a low center of gravity combined with raw, explosive power that makes him almost impossible to dispossess once he gets moving.
He's a tank.
He really is. He likely won't be in the starting 11, but bringing him off the bench in the 70th minute against an exhausted defense, it completely alters the geometry of the match.
If you are listening to this, I want you to pay incredibly close attention to the dynamic when Endrick and Neymar are on the pitch at the same time. You have a 19-year-old ball of kinetic, physical power playing right next to the 34-year-old, seasoned, and physically fading finesse of Neymar.
It's a huge contrast.
It is the raw future and the glittering past of Brazilian football operating simultaneously. It is going to be incredibly cinematic to watch.
Assuming, of course, they can navigate their way out of the group stages to actually reach the cinematic knockout rounds.
Right. Nothing is guaranteed, especially not with this team. So let's lay out the road ahead. The group is set, Group C.
Let's hear it.
On June 13th, they opened the tournament against Morocco at the massive stadium in New York, New Jersey. On June 19th, they traveled down to Philadelphia to play Haiti at Lincoln Financial Field. Finally, on June 24th, they wrap up group play against Scotland at Hard Rock Stadium in Miami.
So on paper, the pedigree of Brazil suggests they should win this group comfortably. But in reality, it presents three very distinct, complex, tactical puzzles for Ancelotti. The opening match against Morocco is genuinely dangerous.
Morocco is a massive threat. Let's not forget, they were the darlings of the 2022 World Cup in Qatar, making a historic, barrier-breaking run to the semifinals. They are the reigning African champions. This is a team overflowing with confidence.
And critically, their tactical identity is exactly the kind of setup that Brazil historically struggles to break down.
Really? How so?
Morocco plays a deeply organized, disciplined mid-block. They have elite talent, like Achraf Hakimi and Hakim Ziyech, with Sofiane Amrabat just destroying attacks in the midfield.
Right.
They are not going to fight Brazil for possession. They will gladly sit back, remain defensively compact, frustrate the Brazilian attackers, and wait for a single mistake to launch a devastating counterattack. The opening match on June 13th will be a grueling psychological test of Brazil's patience.
If they survive Morocco, they get Haiti on June 19th. Haiti is a debutante, qualifying for their first World Cup through the expanded CONCACAF slots. There are massive underdogs.
Yeah, that's a different game entirely.
Tactically, we can expect them to park the bus, defending deep within their own penalty area, hoping to scrape out a miraculous draw. This is the match where Brazil needs to rotate the squad, rest the veterans like Neymar or Casemiro, and rack up goal difference.
Absolutely. And then finally, the group concludes against Scotland on June 24th. Scotland brings a completely different profile to the pitch. Intense physicality, robust tackling, and a massive threat on set pieces with players like Scott McTominay and Andy Robertson.
Right, the set pieces will be huge.
Interestingly, this is Scotland's first World Cup appearance since 1998 in France. And coincidentally, the team they played in the opening match of that '98 tournament was Brazil.
Well, that's a fun bit of trivia.
Yeah, Scotland may lack elite individual flair, but under manager Steve Clarke, they are incredibly well organized and will try to turn the match into a physical, grinding battle.
So, factoring in the tactics and the opponents, how do the odds makers see this playing out? Well, the betting markets heavily favor Brazil to win Group C at -350. To win the entire tournament, they are sitting at +800. This makes them the fourth overall favorites globally, trailing behind heavyweights like France, Argentina, and England.
That makes sense.
Sporting Life actually published exact score predictions for the group stage. They project Brazil beating Morocco in a tight 2-1 contest, thrashing Haiti 4-0, and managing a professional, methodical 2-0 victory over Scotland.
And we cannot evaluate those odds without factoring in the massive environmental advantage they are going to have. This tournament is in North America, but it will effectively function as a home tournament for Brazil.
Absolutely. The Brazilian government estimates there are roughly 2.8 million Brazilians currently living in the United States, with enormous, vibrant communities heavily concentrated around the New York and Miami areas.
It's going to be packed.
Add in the hundreds of thousands of fans traveling internationally, and the atmosphere will be completely localized. When Vinicius Jr. steps onto the pitch at MetLife or Hard Rock Stadium, the roar is going to sound and feel exactly like the Maracana. The home field advantage will be suffocating for their opponents.
And if the predictive models hold true, Brazil has a 72.5% statistical probability of winning Group C outright.
Okay, so what happens then?
Well, that placement dictates their path through the newly expanded 48-team knockout bracket. If they win the group, they are projected to advance to the round of 32 to face the runner-up of Group F.
And the models project that Group F runner-up to be either Japan or Tunisia. And this is exactly where the anxiety spikes for anyone following this team closely.
Because of the recent history.
Yes, because if you look at the recent data, Brazil has struggled mightily against both those nations. Under Ancelotti, they played a friendly against Tunisia that ended in a highly frustrating 1-1 draw where they just couldn't break down the defense.
Right.
And even worse, they suffered a 3-2 defeat to Japan in a match played in Tokyo. These are not the easy walkovers a group winner expects in the first knockout round.
It perfectly illustrates the reality of modern international football. The tactical floor of the global game has risen dramatically. Smaller nations are highly organized and physically elite now.
There are no easy games anymore.
Exactly. Even if Brazil manages to navigate that tricky round of 32, they're likely looking at a brutal round of 16 matchup against a strong, physical European or African side like Norway or Senegal. And if they survive that, they hit the absolute heavyweights like England or a surging Mexico in the quarterfinals.
So what does this all mean? We have examined the crushing historical weight of the yellow shirt. We've dissected the unprecedented disaster of their qualifying run. We've looked at Ancelotti's attempt to rewire their tactical DNA, the immense gamble on a hobbled Neymar, and the mechanical strength and weaknesses of this 4-2-4 system.
We've covered it all.
Looking at the entire board, what is your final verdict? Can this deeply flawed, transitioning team actually overcome the European structural hurdles that have haunted them and knocked them out of every World Cup for the last 20 years?
If you approach this purely logically, based on the horrific qualifying data and their documented inability to maintain composure against organized, counter-pressing teams, the answer would be no.
Right, the data says no.
But international football at the highest level is rarely dictated by pure logic. Carlo Ancelotti possesses a unique, almost mystical managerial aura.
He really does.
He has an unparalleled ability to manage egos and navigate high-stakes knockout football. He instills a profound, calm confidence that this historically fragile Brazilian squad so desperately needs.
Yeah.
If he can successfully compress that high-tension spring we talked about, if he can forge that necessary defensive resilience without suffocating their creative instincts, they possess enough raw, individual attacking genius in Vinicius Jr. and Rafinha to win any given match with a single moment of magic.
So you think they can do it?
I believe they have the capacity to reach the semifinals. Whether they can ultimately lift the trophy will depend entirely on their mental fortitude in the exact moment they inevitably fall behind in a knockout match.
It is arguably the most compelling narrative of the entire tournament. You have a squad carrying the heaviest historical expectations in the sport, attempting to rebound from an embarrassing regional collapse.
Yeah.
They are being guided by a European mastermind, stepping onto the international stage for the very first time. They are fielding a roster that is delicately, perhaps dangerously, balancing the fading legend of Neymar with the peak world-beating superstardom of Vinicius Jr.
It is a high-wire act being performed without a safety net, broadcast to billions.
And as we get ready for kickoff next week, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final provocative thought to mull over. We've spent a lot of time discussing the tactical shift, the prioritization of resilience over aesthetic perfection.
Right.
Let's play this out. Let's say Ancelotti's massive gamble pays off. He successfully implements a pragmatic, highly structured European counterattacking system, and he wins. Brazil captures their coveted sixth star, lifting the trophy in New Jersey on July 19th.
Okay.
Does that victory save the legacy of Brazilian football by finally ending a grueling 24-year drought? Or does winning the ultimate prize by playing rigid European soccer officially mark the death of the magical, uninhibited Joga Bonito that made the entire world fall in love with him in the first place?
It is the ultimate Faustian bargain of modern football, achieving the ultimate glory, but potentially sacrificing their soul to get there.
Keep your eyes on the pitch as Group C kicks off, because we are about to watch them make that choice in real time. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Enjoy the tournament, and we will see you next time.